All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for listening. When this gets put up on YouTube, this is the television part of the MTW podcast. This is our My and Some Friends official Game of Thrones Season 5 official review. George and Robbie are here. George is on the Oscar show. Hey, George.
Hey, how's it going?
Berto, you're, as usual, thank you for coming back. You're our Skype. You're our first technology podcast. We did the Marvel one because you Skyped in from Syracuse, and it actually sounded pretty good.
Yes, well, now I am here, and it is wonderful to see the sweat just fucking glistening off you.
Because he had to turn the AC off for the best sound for the people who can hear it. But it's June and it's New York City, so we're just gonna pay for that. And the newest addition tonight, the man who introduced all of us to Game of Thrones, Spencer. Welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so Game of Thrones. This thing's been going on for 5 seasons now. It is a epic of families throughout the 7 kingdoms trying to vie for one throne, and there are roadblocks and backstabbing and betrayal and just horrifying things that happen along the way. So, Robbie and Spencer, question. A very basic thing. What got you guys into Game of Thrones in the first place?
Well, first off, the answer is Spencer, but the really
What kept you into it?
It would be 2 things, I guess. The ending of the first episode where Bran gets pushed out of the tree, out of the tower. Like I was like, oh wow, they did that to a kid. This is a different show.
Yeah.
And then a little while later, the Golden Crown, when they killed off a character that really seemed like was going to be sticking around for a while.
I'm glad they got rid of that. The little Prince Pretty, the Targaryen dude, when they melted his skull with
that was a great episode.
candle wax.
Great episode.
Yeah, that was dope. Because that's when Daenerys that's when she really kind of crossed over.
That was one of her first character arcs in a lot of ways.
That was kind of like her first kind of big decision that she kind of had to make
hurdle
made throughout. And we're not gonna obviously most people. You guys most people who listen to this have probably either seen Game of Thrones or all the origins, so we're not going to go into. It's exhausting.
We can assume they know.
We can kind of give you a brief kind of introduction to the characters, especially throughout this season, and we can kind of tell you where they're at and what we kind of think their goals are, what we thought of this season 5 that just ended last week, thoughts of the future, thoughts what happened to the season, comparisons, all that good stuff. And yeah, so one thing going into season 5 I noticed was that last year was just absurd.
Yeah, that was
last year they really turned it up. Every year they had to do more and more, but this season really felt like when they started to get their stride. And last year was when it became like a pop culture. It became like a pop culture thing.
That's when it broke glass ceiling.
Yeah, it really did, man. Reaction videos, podcasts started opening up more, spoofs, memes, all that type of stuff, social media. So,
and that really had to do with, well, in a lot of ways, the Red Wedding is that big moment.
True,
but it happened at the end of season 3.
Yeah,
so everyone started talking about it, and then when season 4 rolled around, everyone was on board.
Pretty much. And I feel like the biggest draw is how much depth that they've gone in some of the characters, the sort of tangling of multiple storylines, sort of the long payoffs that you get with certain with certain characters.
Yeah, they really play the long con.
Yeah, they do a lot of con, and a lot of the show really plays with conventions, and a lot of things are implied.
Right.
A lot of type of implications, just in behavior, in ideals, and conflict, and all that type of stuff. So I think that's really what's been the true arc of it.
I think one thing we should point out to the listeners is that none of us are really book readers. None of us have. We only really watched the show. People have spoiled things for me.
That show's easily spoiled.
For the most part, I know you read cracked open the first book.
Well, I got 250 pages into the first book, and I just got kind of impatient for all the cool stuff I knew was going to happen.
Because by that point, you'd already seen. How many seasons were out at that point?
I think I tried to start it at the end of the 4th season, in between this and the previous.
Gotcha.
I think it's funny what you said about spoilers. Is that not only is with the events that took place during the first season, obviously, and at this point, if this isn't a spoiler now, everyone knows what happens in the second to last episode of the first season. The main character, Eddard Stark, gets beheaded in public for everyone to see, and it was pretty brutal, and it was upsetting, and I feel like that moment is what, not only was that like a shocking moment in the first season, it's the moment that got people to realize with people, that introduced people, that moment allowed us to introduce people to the show itself, because everyone kind of, it's almost like everyone knew about this beheading thing before they even started watching it in a lot of ways.
Despite the fact that that was the second to last episode of that season, that episode and that event basically set the rules for that universe.
It did.
That, like, anyone's up for grabs.
Oh yeah, none of your favorite characters are safe from suddenly being murdered, even before, like, all the other stuff they've built up and you're waiting for. It's just not going to happen now.
Exactly.
Season 5, episode 10.
Episode 10! So basically, alright, so now we can really get into this season. If you haven't seen Game of Thrones, I realize there are two people. There are two groups of people. The people who love Game of Thrones, like everyone else, like we all do, like everyone does, or the people who don't watch it.
Right.
You either love Game of Thrones or you don't watch it. I haven't met anyone that has watched Game of Thrones that has gone, eh.
Well, now there's a third group of people.
Oh yeah, who are these schmoes?
People who are bigger fans of the book and don't want to keep watching it because next season
you have the rebellion,
the series.
Yeah, because now because especially this season, you're starting to get like these rebellious fans now. It's like I think the books are better and all that stuff, and they want to get all upset and you know and stray away from things, and people try and get spoiled. It's annoying. My
one friend who's a hardcore book fan of that series, I think it was like after episode 4 or 5 said he wasn't gonna watch. He was like I'm done. No, it was episode 7. He was like I'm done. I'm not watching it.
Oh wait,
I'm
was
waiting.
this the Sansa thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, it was. And then. So he was like, I'm done. And he meant it, and I believed it. But then episode 8 happened, and everyone...
Okay. You know what it was? It's like they had to do it. They had to do that.
And then he broke, and now he finished the season, like the rest of us, and he's on the fence about next season.
All right, well, now we'll get to it, because going into season 5, some things are in some turmoil now. King's Landing has been kind of shooken up as Tywin Lannister was shot down an arrow to his death last year. Tyrion is traveling halfway across the other side of the world. King Tommen is a king that's basically been controlled by essentially a corporation.
The Hound is dead.
The Hound is dead.
Arya's on her way to Braavos.
Arya is en route to Braavos. What did you guys... Going into the first season, I noticed the first thing you see is that they show Cersei as a young girl, and she's getting like this cute, and she goes to this forest, and they're like asking her questions.
Yeah, about she sees the witch or soothsayer or whatever.
Yeah, and she has all these questions, and like one day someone will take you take you down or something like that. So it showed that Cersei was gonna have a kind of a big season, and and then that led to happen. I noticed, and this is really the first season, they kind of, they changed in tone, they started leaving things out of the book more, they started stringing their own things. I noticed, a lot of theological, religious elements
with the
this year.
With the Faith Militant.
With the Faith Militant, like, I know how you feel about us type of spirituality, but what does that say about, like, there's an army of God, like, in this world of Game of Thrones? Like, how do you feel about that?
Well, honestly, I'd have to say on the balance, I like it. Okay. If only because, like, Cersei created it to, like, fund her own whims, and because it's such, like, an illogical, impractical setup of, like, punishing everyone by the rules of a holy book.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see that turn around and bite her.
Also, I think Jonathan Pryce as the High Sparrow was...
Oh, that was him?
That dude was a good actor. One of the better little scenes in this season was a small scene between the Lady Olenna and the High Sparrow.
Oh,
Olenna,
yes.
Because I'm blanking on that actress's name, but they're both veteran actors, just sort of riffing off each other in a very intelligent, well-written way. It was good. But let me ask you this.
Yeah.
We've discussed this before.
Yeah.
The first 5 episodes of this season, as a whole, how would you grade that?
The first, I can see why you would ask, because it was hard to tell. It was very hard to tell what direction they were kind of going in, because you had this huge storyline. Like one of the first initial instances in the first season is the tension between Cersei and Marjorie Tyrell, and now she's married to the king, and that's really kind of where things started going in motion. Was that whole kind of tension was kind of nicely built up, and then the Tyrells could kind of, and then they get thrown in jail.
Yeah, that happens about midway.
That happens about the midway point, and I noticed that that trial was kind of like left to the back burner, so I'm not sure if you're gonna go with that next year.
Yeah.
It was interesting because it's almost like, because going back, I have to like try and like jog my memory of what happened.
Well, I think
earlier in the first half.
I think it was for at least the first 3 episodes. It was almost like this unspoken reality that a lot of fans, as a pretty hardcore fan myself, was facing. That I couldn't put my finger on it exactly, but I knew it wasn't as good.
Yeah.
And I think in retrospect, they did just have a lot of. This was, I don't know, I could be wrong, but it felt like this was the most plot lines they've had, or at least up there in plot, and juggling that is very tough.
Yeah, they were really trying to like, it's almost like they had to try and wean people off of how the show was.
And I remember, I'm pretty sure we've had this discussion, and I know I've definitely talked about it with other people,
yeah.
But earlier on there was this notion of, well, what are they building up to, sort of thing, like where... I don't really know where this is going, and that's not necessarily a good thing. I'm just sort of lost.
Because there's usually some progression,
right?
And there's always some sort of progression as it relates to the grand story, as like to the grand.
There's a short-term action that you know, and yeah, they had like Stannis and stuff like that, but it didn't feel. I don't know. There wasn't a lot of emphasis, and I think that's why the ending of episode 8 was the biggest turnaround, because there was finally like conflict. There was. 2 forces were meeting head on.
Yeah.
And granted, obviously being very well shot and a fun action scene, it was the first kind of these head-to-head that we needed. It's a theme throughout the entire series, but this season specifically, there were almost every character had their back against the wall in some way and had to do something very drastic to get their way out of it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think... You know, I thought every season prior to this was perfect. It all had, like, great build-up in a lot of ways. This felt like it lost its way in the middle. And I could be wrong, but having seen the tail end of it now, it almost feels like that's what they were purposefully doing. I mean, while they broke the formula of, like, killing off characters, they also then started to create their own formula. Like, we always knew that episode 9 was going to be a big episode in some capacity. So they had to break that up.
But I like that they didn't try to introduce a whole bunch of new characters too. They didn't really introduce a whole lot of new people.
Just some Dornish people, but that was
but that was all to serve one plot line from the existing story. So actually, yeah. So Jaime has to go to Dorne. Yeah. So now Jaime's thinking he has to go to Dorne to try and rescue Myrcella. And how did you guys feel about how that whole kind of storyline played out with Jaime Lannister and Dorne? Trying to, because I felt like it felt very tame.
Yeah, that one I think they knew they could have probably fit that entire plot line into half a season, so it was a bit stretched out.
And we didn't learn too much more about the Martells.
No, not a whole lot.
Yeah,
it was definitely a weak plot line.
And I have a hard time believing that the prince would be this sort of like either he's really trying to like be this. I just don't understand why he was this kind of forgiving.
Right. Okay.
Well, he's like kind of the sane, rational man around there, and you just know that means he's gonna die.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like pretty early on in the next season, I bet you he'll die.
I guess. Yeah. I guess so. But it's like, but what? Like, why? Why even like why are we even looking at them? So it was decent enough. But I thought but I did like how I did like that kind of revenge. I did like that. I thought that.
You did like it?
I thought that was a really good payoff. I enjoyed the. It was kind of messed up, but that kill the Marcella girl. She gets killed. Girl. In case you didn't know, they get rescued back at the boat, and Marcella knows that Jamie is her father. She knows everything that's going on. Jamie has this nice moment. Then she starts bleeding out of her nose, and I assume, what was that, poison? What was that?
It was the poison that Bronn was...
That Bronn was using, but it was just like, I guess it was just something that just...
She put it on her lips.
On her lips, and then like...
And that's why she kissed her for like a while.
The kiss,
and that was an interesting... I was just like, oh, okay. When that character kissed Marcella on the lips, I was just like, oh, that's probably just a Dornish custom. That's
we were told they were very kind of like, very.
But I do think that was its weaker plot line for this series.
Yeah,
there was probably some better ones. Yeah. Also, I do feel, and also with that. The whole Brienne and Pod storyline was a little like...
That was kind of... you know what it was? That was just kind of like a waste of characters, but... that... I thought it was a nice relationship. I liked...
no, they were good together.
Yeah, I'm glad there's some use for them, and I kind of liked the... and I liked that she got her... That was an example of the long calling. She finally gets her kill on Stannis Baratheon at the end, which I really liked. And I'll go to Stannis in a second. But George, did you watch like all of them? Because I know you like to watch them out of context.
No, I didn't watch them to the extent where I would be able to discuss them.
Okay, no worries. But whenever you watch like scenes, like how do you feel like we actually, whenever you you sort of turn it on, you just kind of watch a scene out of context. Like what feeling? Like how do you kind of?
I mean, it's just
not even the script. How do you feel about the dialogue?
I'm looking for like just the aesthetic value, like the pleasing. World they create. And I just like that. I just like taking a look at the world they create and kind of, indulging in it for a little bit. I plan to watch it, but it just, requires me to have the time to watch it.
Fair enough. Now, a big thing from season 5 is the Stannis Baratheon. This was kind of a big topic. How do we like Stannis' sort of how the Stannis Baratheon story played out?
Well, tomorrow's Father's Day.
Yes.
Yeah, he's definitely... I mean, for the longest time, everyone agreed that, he does, out of all of these people who have a claim to the throne, his is the best. Mm-hmm. So they needed to make him a bit unlikable. They needed this. And,
well, he kind of overshot unlikable.
Yeah,
they made him pathetic at times. My biggest...
desperate.
My biggest complaint with Stannis, I didn't like how they made him kind of naive and foolish for a lot of time he was on that show.
The man had his back against the wall, like many of the other characters. And so what he did was very drastic. And
for those who didn't know, we can tell you now.
What's his daughter's name?
Shireen. Melisandre, who's been this sort of aide to Stannis for about 3 seasons now, about 3 years, he keeps trying to convince her of like these act of the gods, like she's putting like a lot of mythology sort of ways in Stannis' head.
The
Lord of Light, who we actually saw I think back in the 2nd season. I remember. And then her big plan is that you need more King's blood, and they don't have the bastard of King Robert. He kind of escaped.
He's still rowing.
Actually. Yeah, he might. Who knows? Davos let him go a while ago. So he's like, well, we gotta get some more King's blood somewhere.
Oh, is that why they took his fingers?
No.
I thought didn't the king have his hand?
Stannis had like the top half of Davos' fingers cut off, and that was because he was a smuggler.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like he was the king who...
Oh, did that happen before the show?
Yeah.
Okay.
At least, because with this season, they went more into depth with, like, how Stannis had to, like, what was it like kind of raising Shireen and stuff like that, and, how he tried to be, like, the best he could, and...
With her disease.
So I think this season, what was frustrating was that they did try to make him a little more pleasant this season, and then the sort of stoops he's go to towards the end is kind of frustrating. So, there's a nice moment between Stannis and Shireen, father and daughter.
Very, very nice.
It was a good scene, and Shireen offers, I want to help you, like, they really have a great moment, and Stannis goes, well, there is a way you can help me. And then the next day...
She died in episode 9.
That was episode 9, yeah.
But that conversation was like episode 6.
No,
that was like right before
that was right before it, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
No, but what was the episode where they're discussing?
That was what this whole just her disease. All right, so I guess there was two.
That was a very touching scene as well.
So they gave us two touching scenes this year with Stannis and Shireen, and then
much needed.
And then the mom was always out of whack too. She feels it's a good idea, and then she walks towards it. Melisandre will all be over soon, and I tell you not, Shireen Baratheon gets burned alive.
It was one of the first off-screen deaths.
Thank God. Thank Christ. Oh God.
Even listening to the screams was hard.
We saw a man's head get crushed last year. I don't know if we can handle any more of that stuff, but it was just like, even off-screen, like the screams were the worst part. But like, you know, they just couldn't. And then the mom is so riddled with guilt. At the start of the finale, the mom hangs herself, so she's out. So basically, Stannis is just like, this thing's over.
And also, at the very beginning of that episode, he finds out that like over half of his men deserted after they saw him kill.
Well, that was a thing. How it was just like, I remember thinking that during the burning was just like, why would you show all of these people that you just could kill a girl like that?
And that was it.
Who's also your daughter,
and for no reason. It was just he. It's almost like he just didn't know what he was doing, and he was just a desperate man.
Granted, at the beginning of episode 10, it does kind of work. The storm passes and the snow begins to melt.
Yeah. Right.
So yes, she's dead, but it wasn't. Well, I guess it ultimately was for nothing because he lost the battle.
They lost the battle. That was it.
They lost the battle badly.
Yes, very badly.
And that's the legacy of Stannis Baratheon. At the very end, to put a cap on the Stannis Baratheon thing. Brienne of Tarth, she comes up to him, she confesses, she finally gets her revenge on the Shadow with Stannis' face killing Renly Baratheon in Season 2. He goes, go on, do your duty, and then we get the amazing Spider-Man 2 intercut.
Yeah, that was interesting, because I was
with the sword cutting through, essentially going through... Killing, the sword cuts to the screen. We don't see Stannis die, and it cuts with something else. So what was that about?
That was very interesting, because I remember thinking, like, why did... They've shown beheadings. They've shown much worse than beheadings.
Does it make you,
all of those Baratheons died off screen.
I don't understand why they would do that.
Baratheons don't die on screen. Oh my God, you're right.
The mom died off. The mom hung himself off screen. The daughter gets burned off screen. Baratheon gets beheaded off screen. And other Baratheon gets mauled by a gore off screen.
Baratheons don't die on screen.
Well, he was alive in the bed for a little while, but they don't actually show his death. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting point. Do you think there's a reason why?
Probably not.
No real reason. It's probably just a coincidence.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm pretty sure from I know a lot of the people who read the books, and I'm pretty sure that in the books, Robert Baratheon also just dies like off page.
Okay.
So they just kept it in line with that.
Interesting intercut.
I do think the Stannis thing is. I have no reason to believe that he's. What could have happened?
Why wouldn't he? What could have possibly happened between now and that split second? Why wouldn't he? I don't know, but they intercut it.
We'll find out in a year.
Because remember, we get 10 hours of Game of Thrones every year. So now, let's stay to the north. Let's go to the opposing people in the north, the Boltons. These guys are some sneaky motherfuckers, man. These Boltons are kind of like...
Yeah.
These guys are kind of... they're kind of... Either
there are no redeeming qualities.
There are no redeeming qualities, and they always get away.
Yeah, well, they killed Joffrey off last season. You need a slimy motherfucker.
Yeah, and Ramsay is basically taking Joffrey's place as like the slimy sack of shit of Game of Thrones.
Basically,
yeah.
I mean, and it will be great when hopefully Sansa kills him.
Yeah. So now
let's talk about that.
Let's talk about.
Why don't you lead the conversation in that?
But because Robbie is still very upset about how this went down.
I will set up the storyline. Peter Baelish, Lord Baelish, she takes Sansa back to Winterfell. This is your home. This is your home, Sansa. You have to be the aide, It's like, I can't. This is where you belong. All that stuff. And then she is forced to marry Ramsay Bolton.
I will say this, though, and this was also probably done on purpose, because the scene before the brutal rape...
Yes.
Was the wedding, which that set was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Let's just take a second.
That was an awesome
to acknowledge.
She's also very creepy and somber.
I hope is she actually red? Because Sansa Stark, she really wears red. She does the red thing well.
Sansa?
Yeah, she red. I love her red hair, son.
Yeah, well, and also I think one of the creepiest bits was just seeing Reek. try and play a human being.
Reek. Poor Reek. Reek has just had a downward spiral since like the start of season 3.
That was, I think, in season 3, that was the peak of the show's brutality. His entire purpose.
And remember, I always thought, I had a conversation with my family, it was like, the only reason why you're showing Theon getting tortured is that you can't forget about him because he's going to come back at some point.
That's true, yeah.
Later on. And this year we finally get, like, Reek finally, like, gets some slight redemption a little bit.
A little bit.
But probably one of the hardest things of the season is the wedding night. Reek is escorted Sansa to the chambers or whatever. Ramsay's there. Ramsay being all creepy and whatnot. Wants to consummate the marriage. And goes to he makes Reek look in the back corner. Goes, you watched her since she was a young girl. Watched her become a woman, and then Ramsay, we get an off-screen rape on Sansa Stark.
It's a little on screen, but
it was a little bit, but it was rough.
It was vile.
There's one thing that I thought about after the fact, and they don't address it, but I thought about it.
Yeah.
Is that room they're in her parents' old room?
Oh my god, that could have been. It was even. I remember a particular scene from season 1, and it was a similar setup.
I mean, I don't know if it's the exact set, but I was thinking about it because they're in her, or maybe that was her childhood room, which would also be equally as disturbing.
Ooh, man, her being back in Winterfell is unsettling, and they really kind of showed you that. There was this old woman that tries to help her out. She gets skinned like a cat nailed to the thing, but it was bad. But what I did like, the only thing that came out of this is that there's a possibility that Ramsay might not be the only Bolton. There could be another.
There's another son coming.
There's another son coming. That could be a factor. We'll see what Ramsay does with that, because that might be bad.
I would not put it past this show to have somebody kill a baby.
That was the end of.
That was the Red Wedding.
No, but the end of episode 1 of season 2, Joffrey orders all the bastard children in King's Landing to get murdered.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and
it's
rewatch season 2. That was brutal.
Yeah,
that was. Damn. I do maintain. I think season 2. They're all great in their own way, but I think season 2 from beginning to end is perfect.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And I like the third season. Actually, to me, the third season was my favorite.
Third season was very, very good.
Let's go to the other side of the world here. Daenerys is just she has a bit of a gang problem now.
Yeah, the Sons of the Harpies.
Very vicious. That was a very vicious group of people, man. Like, I thought the masks were.
Those are creepy. They're
creepy.
They clearly composed a special theme for them, and if you go back and rewatch it, it's expertly bone chilling.
Oh, I didn't even notice the theme. But like the mask, they had like these deep, like open, like black, gouging like gapes of like
When they show up in episode 9 in the fighting pits.
Oh, there's like
this deep chanting almost. That's their theme, and I oh my god!
Because they're forced to reopen the fighting pits, and then look what the hell happens, man. That dude that she was supposed to marry, that curly-headed dude,
whose name I don't think
I forgot his name, but he got stabbed hard. But Daenerys has some company this year as Varys is trying to take Tyrion over there, but while Tyrion is getting, remember Tyrion's still on the run for killing Tywin Lannister,
right?
While Tyrion is traveling towards Marine or whatever, he gets kidnapped by an old friend, Jorah Mormont, who we saw right off in his horse last year. And if you don't die in Game of Thrones, you probably come back, and he didn't die.
Very true.
Essentially. So Jorah is now trying to get back into the Queen's good graces by bringing Tyrion to him. I liked Jorah. I liked the storyline though. I thought they had good chemistry.
I liked it a lot too. For some reason, I mean, early on, there's so many good characters to like, even the bad characters. Mm-hmm. But I always particularly enjoyed his story. I just think that I'm blanking on the actor's name, but I always thought he was a good actor who played Jorah.
Oh, I forgot his. Oh, Ian somebody, because he's in something. I see him in like other things.
Yeah, he's pretty good. So I really enjoyed it, and
I enjoyed it, and that was a pretty awesome payoff. We got some real drag. We got some
real
true
dragons.
Action. Daenerys takes a dragon.
Some woman on dragon action.
She takes a dragon, flies away after the Sons of the Harpy chaos. People get burned alive, and she flies all the way back to season 1.
Back to the Dothraki.
She goes back to the Dothraki people.
Which didn't leave you with a whole lot, but to be perfectly honest, I actually got really excited.
It was pretty interesting.
I liked.
She took a ring off again. Like, what did you think? Like, her taking the ring off.
Oh, I was thinking that might be some kind of dumb Lord of the Rings style, like, I'm gonna leave something in the dirt, in the middle of this vast plain, and then you guys are gonna come along and find it later and realize, oh no, the Dothraki have her.
Yeah, so
fair enough.
That could have been the way. So, interesting. I think, don't know what you're doing, Daenerys. She's just like, she can't rule. She's just having like the worst time ruling. It's like everything always backfires. She beheads a dude earlier this year.
Oh right, yeah.
And then she gets hissed at by her people, and like she just has like no like support. Like what's the name? She seems so lost.
She's got
aimless.
Some serious diplomatic problems.
Yeah,
I feel like for her story throughout a lot of the seasons, they have an end kind of in mind, but they play it slow a little bit.
Yes.
So you get like these little tastes. I'm very excited for next season and how they end off. Tyrion basically being in control of Meereen.
Tyrion
and Varys.
And the woman and the Unsullied and all that. That's gonna be we'll see what happens.
I think that's what like
interesting. I think we covered we covered a good chunk here, but
Arya.
Oh yeah, Arya. Let's go to Arya now. Oh Lord, this girl's crazy.
She's
Arya,
a fan favorite.
She's a fan favorite. She is like, well, these Starks, man, they're not these Starks are they're popping off. We're gonna get to that in a few seconds.
She's a fighter,
but she is. I'm surprised. Like there's still some Starks. Like Bran and Rickon, they took the year off.
Were they ever in it?
Bran's important.
Well, yeah, Bran is important.
But they've stretched his storyline out. He gets like 3 scenes every. He gets like 3 scenes a year.
Cutting him out of the season was a good decision because I think what we'll get next season
We're making a lot of Bran. We're making a lot of Bran. Maybe some reunions going on. Possibly.
Don't be too hopeful.
Don't think too hopeful.
There's not going to be enough of them left for a reunion.
Yeah, exactly.
And hang on, this might be is Sansa on Arya's list? I can't remember Arya's list.
I don't know.
Why would she be on?
Because she was there at the dad's.
Wait.
No, but I think it was more like people were responsible for it.
But I thought a few years ago she was on the list, so I do think there's some merit there.
Really? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Arya hates Sansa.
But that list kind of kept changing and altering.
That's true.
And
I don't think she's out for. I mean, also, I think one of the crazy things about the whole Stark family is no one else knows who's alive. They all know Robb's dead.
Yeah.
Except for maybe. What? No. Yeah, they all know Robb. No. She was there. They all know Robb and their mother's dead. But as far as the others, their children are really concerned, other than Robb.
Yeah.
They all don't know who's alive.
Yeah.
They know that Jon could be up at Castle Black.
Which is is he? We'll get to that in a little bit, but I think there's some. Yeah, I think that's there. So Arya
is in Braavos.
She's in Braavos. She's learning to become faceless.
She's at the House of Black and White.
House of Black and White. A faceless god. A faceless whatever. A faceless. She has to become nothing. But the problem is, Arya. She's just so hellbent on revenge, and she wants answers. And we see the scene in the lake. She throws everything away that makes Arya accept the sword.
That's true.
And I thought that was interesting. I actually went back and like, oh, she kept the sword on her.
Yeah, she hid it somewhere.
She can't go back to how she was. And
so this is gonna throw away a good sword.
Exactly. Yeah, especially people get killed for those swords. But like even like while she was training that other girl, she had a little suspicious feelings. And then when she saw Ser Meryn, oh boy, things kind of went loose because.
I particularly enjoyed that revenge because he was
Ser Meryn's a little creepy. He likes young girls and sex torturing, and I remember Ser Meryn. He's with people from King's Landing because they get sent there.
That's true.
I was like they get sent down there,
and
from Khaleesi, like from Cersei a few years ago, a few episodes before that.
Yeah,
they go down the Braavos.
You don't think much of it until they finally. Show it to you.
I forgot what Cynthia about. Yeah, but Cersei sent people down the Braavos. That weird blonde guy that's kind of creepy, and he brought Ser Meryn with him. He's like, oh god.
Yeah, I think that Ser Meryn killed
That guy, Syrio, that was in the first season, right?
Who I thought was a great character, so I was particularly excited about this revenge.
Oh, yeah, he was the first Dornish that we were introduced.
No, he was a Braavosi.
Oh no, you're right.
Yeah, but I remember that was back. That was like at the end of the first season. Yeah, they do a lot of like first season callbacks.
The whole thing's about call. It's all
the show. It requires your memory, which is part of the fun of it. Is that it forces you better pay attention.
Well, that's why they always do the like previously on.
Yeah. Oh, those have been really important.
So when they show you a scene from season 2, you're like, okay.
Oh, okay, that's coming back because you know it's coming back.
Right.
And and then Arya's revenge. She describes herself as a faceless person. To Sir Meryn's
pulls it off.
Pulls it off. She kills Sir Meryn, stabs him in the eyes.
Very brutal death.
Punctures the hell out of him, just like, who am I? I'm Arya Stark. Just kills the living shit out of him.
Slices his throat.
But the problem, but in this pursuit of getting revenge on Sir Meryn, she has abandoned her duties as part of as part of a trainer, as part of the.
That's true. The many-faced.
But as part of the many-faced god, she's been actually. And remember, she disobeys that. Remember, she ignores that clams guy. When she sees come off the boat, This show's like this is like reading a book. I have to like pay attention to so many things. And I was like, oh god, okay, yeah. So there was a lot. So that was kind of a hell of a thing.
So she's blind.
She's blind, yeah. And then the guy's pissed off. He goes, that man's life was not a girl's to take, and only death can pay for life. That dude dies, but it's really another face, and we see Arya's face, and all of a sudden her eyesight goes away. And so her eyesight, her sin cost her eyesight. So
it's gonna, that's a pretty crazy note to end on.
It just shows, and it's just like because even with revenge, it's like you can't like. It shows that whenever the good people try and get revenge, something bad happens to them worse. I feel like later the show punishes the good people worse than it punishes the bad.
This show doesn't always apply to convention, and I think that's one of the things that makes it so exhilarating. But so that'll be interesting.
That'll be true. But now, last but not least, I'm good. Okay, last but not least, Jon Snow. Well, oh man, this was really. What's up?
Episode 8.
Okay, all right. Episode 8. Episode 8 was titled Hardhome, which is where those rotten wildlings and thens live, and we remember that whole awesome battle last year.
Episode 9.
At the wall, that was awesome.
No. Watchers on the Wall.
Watchers on the Wall. That was when the whole northern attack. That was basically them versus the wildlings.
Good fight.
Good fight.
Episode.
Goodbye, Ingrid. Ingrid got by was it Ollie? Okay, I'm gonna address this Ollie situation. Okay,
hold on. Let's go in order. So we have Jon go up to north of the Wall.
Yes.
With what was his name? Tormund Giantsbane.
Yes.
To see if he can get the wildlings south of the Wall.
Yeah.
What happens up there?
They get some assistance from the wildlings after a bunch of assholes and being hard-headed, and then they get some visitors. They get some visitors in the form of White Walkers. White Walkers, they run supreme and probably the best White Walker segment. George, you see this part? Did you see the White Walker one? Okay, dude. Awesome.
Winter is officially here.
It only took 5 years, but winter is finally here. So the White Walkers, they just wreak havoc. They kill.
It was a very, very good, very brutal.
Night's Watchmen, wildlings were dead, thens were dead. Night's Watchmen were dead, which was not popular. Jon Snow was people were against Jon Snow for going up there. Jon Snow beheads a dude when he becomes a knight. He becomes a knight commander this season. He becomes a knight commander.
Oh right, he kills. I forgot the character.
He's been a smart ass. He's always a smart ass. I remember him.
He was part of the Kingsguard.
Yeah,
and he gets sent up to the Wall.
He gets beheaded. He aligns with Stannis. Jon Snow made a lot of.
He mercy kills Mance Rayder.
He mercy kills Mance Rayder. Like this guy was asking for it this year. That was like the first thing he did this year, where he mercy killed Mance Rayder. I'm like, I know Jon Snow's a good guy, but he's paying.
One thing though, I loved. I told this to you, Robbie. One of my favorite scenes in this whole season, and actually in the entire series.
Yeah.
I forget what episode it's in, but it's the death of Aemon Targaryen.
That was very
the Maester. And one of the reasons it was so amazing was, one, I thought it was just a very touching scene, but also it's one of the first, if not the only death.
That was episode 8, right? Or was that no? That was in 7.
It was definitely up there.
Yeah, that was in 7.
But
that was the same episode that Cersei got caught.
Oh, okay.
We'll tackle that in a bit.
But I think one thing that made that death so great was he was an old man who died of a natural death in his bed, surrounded by people he cared about.
Yeah.
Nobody gets that kind of treatment on this show.
No.
Everyone dies a brutal, horrific death.
I heard Aemon gets a bad death in the books, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I heard that.
Because this was just like, he clearly went in his bed.
Died on his deathbed, and
Sam, who respected him.
Sam, exactly, yeah, and,
so I love that. I love that scene.
Yeah, good. Maester Aemon finally someone gets a peaceful death on Game of Thrones.
I mean, he was like 400 years old.
And I'm glad, like, give it to a Targaryen, like the real people, you know. You know, please, you know. But so John, goes to, and then we find out while this battle at Hardhome.
All right.
As these people get killed, they become White Walkers.
Yeah.
So now, it's almost like no matter what you do, this army of the dead is growing and growing. And then season 8, we get this horrific shot of more White Walkers just staying there waiting at the island, and then you see like whatever people survived the Night's Watch just going away on a boat, and Jon Snow face was just like
when the credits cut and it was just the sound of sloshing water. It was just, why don't you just sit there for a second?
Just think about it. They want you exactly, and so that was horrendous. And
that was great.
But then the true heartache was
fuck Ollie.
Okay, yeah. Now we're getting to fuck Ollie, because here's what happens to Jon Snow at the end of this season. After the whole Stannis lose, Melisandre, she goes back to the Night's Watch stable. What was Stannis' right hand? Davos. He's like, Princess, where's everyone? And then Melisandre's like, yo, they're dead. And then Davos, you gotta be kidding me. Like, this is bogus. And then Jon Snow's like, I don't know what to do, man. And then we see Jon Snow like a few hours later in his chambers, and then Ollie comes up and say, hey, Jon, we think you found your Uncle Benjen. Like, you found Uncle Benjen? Oh my god! And then Jon Snow, he's all excited. He's walking down the council. And then the music gets upbeat. Jon Snow, he goes to the front of the wall. He goes to a gate, and there's a sign that says traitor. And that is not Uncle Benjen. This was a setup. And the people from the Night's Watch were so upset with Jon Snow that not only did he risk the lives of their men to save their enemy, and they wind up losing more people in the process. It's all Jon Snow's fault. And the Night's Watch proceeds to stab him to death. Julius Caesar. Jon Snow gets Julius Caesar, and the reason why everyone hates Ollie is that Ollie gets the final shot, the final shoot in the blow. And my problem is, I was just talking to my brother about this week. Those wildlings and thins killed Ollie's parents.
Yeah.
So,
but also at the same time, to counter, the counter argument to him just being
explain this hate.
A whiny little kid. Yeah. Is okay. So his family was killed by wildlings. Yeah. Fair enough. But you want to know something? Jon Snow's father was beheaded by the king. Who does the Night's Watch serve? The realm. So he's just I hate that kid so fucking much. I don't know if he's in the books or not.
Oh god.
He kind of feels like a character written for the show, but I could be wrong. Yeah. But anyway,
Jon Snow's dead. He's dead by the hands of the Night's Watch. For now. But before we get to that, let's get to the other big thing. Was how the Cersei Lannister...
Oh, the walk of shit.
The Cersei Lannister thing gets resolved. She admits to her crimes of fornication with the family. That was brutal. And she goes to the High Sparrow, and she goes, you're free to go after your walk of atonement. And Cersei goes, what the hell's that? Cersei gets shoved in, the nuns, whatever, they shave her head. She's buck naked. She's naked.
It's a body double, by the way.
A body double, I know. It's nice to look at. You see full everything. And a naked Lena Headey
walking through
the streets of King's Landing to the realm, as she is labeled as a cousin fucker and a fornicator. Oh my god! That was brutal. And the walk of shame. You kept hearing that.
And that fucking.
And they tear her apart. Cersei gets the walk of shame. And everyone knows all of her crimes. Dude, and she's presented as a nothing, as a peasant, and people just spit on her, and they there's blood everywhere. They throw mud at her, bumping bottles, glass. Like, this was the worst.
Next season, Cersei is going to burn King's Landing to the ground, and I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, so guys, Cersei really finally what'd you feel? That it was unnerving. That was a hell.
That was unnerving because the whole time I remember thinking like, wow, this is going on a little too long. Oh wait.
That's the point.
That's the point.
Yeah.
You're supposed to like. I think they wanted you to feel like an unrest.
It was very hard to watch.
Yeah, and it was like, and that's the thing. In Game of Thrones, even when the worst people get their comeuppance, you still feel some sympathy for them.
It's very well written at the end of the day.
It's even with Joffrey, it's like, damn. It's like
the thing about his death was, he was the best bad guy.
He was that guy
was completely hateable.
He was the best bad guy, and the actor was amazing.
Jack Gleason. He could never play anything else.
Well, I think he quit acting.
He might have to.
Yeah, people were being a dick to him.
People were like,
he quit acting also. But side thing, I've seen interviews with him. He's actually like an extremely well-educated young man, and I think he like quit acting to pursue like humanitarian efforts. To be an actual like kind of a good human being.
Alright, but that was but then the big thing with Cersei. And this is going to be a big thing. She comes back to the king. She's naked. She's humiliated. She's cut up. She gets her comfort, and then one of her aides says, "Let me introduce you to the newest Kingsguard," and it's the Mountain. And his new Frankenstein format. Last time we saw the Mountain in one of the worst Game of Thrones moments ever, crushing the skull of Oberyn Martell, but the Mountain, he got banged up in the process. At the end of last year, we saw him being rebooted, and now he's taking a vow of silence, so all of the Queen's enemies are dead.
I think one of the creepiest things about that reveal was his purple zombified flesh up against the bright gold of his helmet.
Yeah, the color contrast of that was just was unreal. So what you got? The Mountain is back in this machinic form now.
He's gonna kill a lot of people next season.
Oh my god, yeah.
It's gonna be bad. And Cersei's face just changed instantly. You had your fun, now I'm gonna fuck y'all up.
Yeah.
And so that's it. Game of Thrones, a very transitional season. A lot of interesting turns, a lot of uncertainties. But how did you guys feel with how it ended? Jon Snow, what do you guys think?
Oh, as far as the Jon Snow things?
Yeah, that's what's on everyone's minds. I watched this. I thought I was going to pass out. I was having panic attacks. I couldn't believe what I saw.
Well, here's what I think, and I think a lot of people agree with me. In season 3, one of my favorite plot lines of season 3 was the Brotherhood.
Yes.
With Thoros of Myr.
Yeah.
And Beric Dondarrion, I believe was his name.
Yeah.
And him and the Hound get into a fight.
Okay.
And the Hound kills him, and Thoros of Myr, who's a priest to the Lord of Light, brings Beric back from the dead with some prayer.
Okay.
Melisandre is also a priestess to the Lord of Light. And she just happens to walk into Castle Black the scene before he gets got.
I think so.
He's gonna get resurrected.
But it won't be. But will it be a different being now? What's gonna? It could be a. What's gonna happen? It's gonna be some.
It's probably gonna be pretty jaded. I'll tell you that.
Jaded, but we won't get this Jon Snow being. I don't think anymore. It might be somewhat different. So do you think we'll see Kit Harington again? Is he?
I think we'll see Kit Harington again. Okay. And I know in interviews he said that he's dead, but
I think he might have to do the best he can to try to save face.
Of course.
But you know what? Main thing, hold off on that Jon Snow thing. Make that either the end of next year or maybe the start of season 7.
Right.
Hold back.
I was actually thinking about this earlier because one of the things that got cut out
Yeah.
of season 3 was this reveal that happened in the books that Catelyn Stark gets brought back to life.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And so that whole plot line's cut out.
I would assume.
And
so.
I think this could be forward thinking. It could have just been by happenstance, but they cut her resurrection out because if and when Jon Snow gets resurrected, we'll be kind of sick of that gimmick by then. So what I think is maybe they saved the whole resurrection plot line for Jon Snow and just let Catelyn die.
Okay, and one thing interesting note was I remembered was when Catelyn died and Robb Stark died, they actually had they were talking about the actors and working with the actors in these interviews, these post-episode interviews. They kept the Jon Snow thing pretty quiet, and they didn't talk about Kit was a great guy. They were just oh yep, Jon Snow died. But they kind of it's almost they undersold it to his thing. Will it be a good it's hard for when you have a show that the fans are really smart to latch onto because then what if that's a big moment? Do they have to know that the fans are expecting Jon Snow to be back? How do you play with that now?
You want to know something at this point? If you were to ask me about my whole opinions on my faith in the creators at the beginning of this season,
yeah,
it would be a little I don't know. They're clearly slipping, but now after this whole season, they clearly have a lot of things up their sleeves.
They have a lot of
things very capable.
They're capable. They just need to grind some things out. So season 5, all in all,
what do you think they're talking about right now?
It's like, all right, we gotta do this, we gotta do this, we gotta do this, we gotta do this. So, all right. But I enjoyed it. My final thoughts is I enjoyed it. I kind of like the turns they took. Mm-hmm. I like that they kind of spend more time to flesh out some of the current characters they had, and I thought there was a hell of a payoff there with Jon Snow. That was mm-hmm. As usual. I got knocked out. Mm-hmm. The wind knocked out of me again. So, Robbie, Spence, any final thoughts on this before you wrap it up?
No, not really. I mean, I agree. I think this was overall a good season. I know it took a little while to get going, but all the other seasons also kind of do that too. The first half of the show is kind of setting up for the later half. Mm-hmm. It's just that this was the first time it was really like a stark contrast between the build-up and the action.
True.
Yeah, I think ultimately they stumbled a bit in the first half, which made me question what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So I would, if I had to say, I would say this is the weakest of all 5
maybe
seasons.
Maybe the weakest arc.
It had some of my favorite parts in it, which is funny.
But not a standout season.
But I think a bad Game of Thrones. It's definitely not a season that was bad enough for me to say I'm not gonna watch it, or let alone question the quality of the next season.
Because I'll never not watch. We've invested too much into it. We're never not gonna watch it again. So we'll see what happens.
What else are you gonna watch?
That's it. But guys, thank you so much, George. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it. You should watch it. I can not only recommend it enough, but that's it. Thank you for listening to Game of Thrones podcast. We'll be back with more content throughout the summer. We'll see what happens in season 6. We only get 10 hours a year, so I'm sure we'll salivate at the tongue for then. True Detective, maybe. I do a True Detective review.
We can have a Straight Outta Compton.
We gotta have a show. Yeah, we're gonna get back to some movies soon. But I haven't seen enough movies to fully. Not enough movies to really go hard with recommending, or with reviewing, because we just did all the Oscar stuff too. So I figured try and balance it out.
No, I meant we would just have one podcast dedicated to Straight Outta Compton.
Oh, that we should. But that's it. That's a wrap.
Tune in next time.
Tune in next time. We're gonna put the AC on. We're hot. Good night, everyone.
Peace.
Peace out.